My boyfriend loved humiliating me in public and calling it just jokes. So I made him feel exactly how it felt to be shamed in front of his boss. So there's this guy I've been dating named Tyler who seemed perfect at first. Charming, confident, always knew what to say. But about 3 months in, something shifted. We were at his friend's birthday party when I mentioned I'd gotten a small promotion at work. Instead of congratulating me, Tyler laughed and told everyone how I'd probably just gotten it because my boss felt sorry for me. He said it loud enough that half the room heard. When I pulled him aside later, he said I was being too sensitive and couldn't take a joke. That was just the beginning. Every time we went out, he'd find ways to make me look stupid. At restaurants, he'd order for me and then tell the waiter I was still learning about good food when I tried to change something. When we met his coworkers for drinks, he introduced me as trying to figure out her life, even though I have a stable career. If I disagreed with him about anything, movies, politics, even what route to take home, he'd roll his eyes and tell whoever was nearby that I always had to argue about everything. The worst part was how he'd twist things afterward. When I confronted him in private, he'd say I was imagining things or that I needed to learn how to laugh at myself. He started doing this thing where he'd pat my head like I was a child whenever I tried to make a point about something. His friends started treating me like I was some ditzy girlfriend who couldn't think for herself. It got more calculated over time. He'd wait until we were in groups to bring up embarrassing stories about me, always framing them like he was being affectionate. He told his parents about my student loans at their anniversary dinner, making it sound like I was drowning in debt when I was actually managing them fine. He'd interrupt me mid-sentence to translate what I was saying, claiming I wasn't explaining myself clearly. Once, at my own sister's engagement party, he gave a toast where he joked about how he was teaching me to be less stubborn and more agreeable. The breaking point came at my company's holiday party. Tyler spent the entire night undermining me to my colleagues. He told my manager I'd been stressed about work and probably needed easier assignments. He laughed about how I'd cried during a movie the previous week, making me sound emotionally unstable. When I tried to discuss the project I was leading, he cut me off and said I got confused about technical details. My coworkers started looking at me differently, like I was fragile. That's when I decided I was done being his punching bag. But I didn't want to just break up with him. I wanted him to understand what it felt like. I started by reaching out to his ex-girlfriend Rachel. Turns out Tyler had done the exact same thing to her. She said he'd made her feel worthless for 2 years before she finally left. She still had messages from other women who dated him, all with similar stories. We created a group chat and started comparing notes. There were 7 of us total. Then I found out something interesting. Tyler was up for a huge promotion at his marketing firm. He'd been working on this presentation for months, and the senior partners would be making their decision based on his performance at the quarterly meeting. He'd been practicing his pitch obsessively. 2 weeks before his presentation, I suggested we host a dinner party for his team. Tyler loved the idea because it would make him look good. What he didn't know was that I'd invited all 7 of his ex-girlfriends. I told them to come at staggered times throughout the evening. The dinner started normally. Tyler was in his element, charming his colleagues and making subtle digs at me as usual. Then Rachel walked in. Tyler's face went pale, but he tried to play it cool, introducing her as an old friend. 20 minutes later, Jessica arrived, then Sarah. By the time the 4th ex showed up, his colleagues were exchanging confused looks. Each woman was perfectly polite, but they all had something to say. Rachel mentioned how Tyler used to do the same head-patting thing with her. Jessica laughed about his habit of translating for girlfriends. Sarah brought up how he'd undermined her career too. They weren't aggressive about it, just casual observations that painted a very clear picture. Tyler tried to change the subject, tried to joke it off, even tried to leave, but his boss was fascinated. She started asking questions. The other ex-girlfriends kept arriving, each adding another piece to the puzzle. His colleagues watched him shrink smaller and smaller as his pattern became undeniable. By the end of the night, Tyler's reputation was destroyed. His boss pulled him aside and said she had concerns about his leadership style and treatment of women. He didn't get the promotion. Word spread through his company about the dinner party. He became known as the guy who had 7 ex-girlfriends show up to expose his behavior. He called me crying the next day, begging me to tell people it was a misunderstanding. I told him I was just helping him learn to laugh at himself. Then I hung up and blocked his number.